If you're 50 or 55 and you're just now realizing that your retirement fund looks more like a vacation fund or a long weekend fund, I'm not going to tell you everything's fine, but I am going to tell you this: all is not lost. Now, for decades, the financial industry has been drilling numbers into our heads about how much money we actually need to retire. I remember when I was a kid, it was probably around $1 million, and everyone thought that if you had $1 million, you could retire comfortably. And then in recent decades, it's been 2, and some reports even suggest that it takes 3 million or possibly 3.5 million to be comfortable in retirement. And if you don't see that balance when you log into your account, you may feel like the chances for a comfortable retirement or even any retirement at all is possibly slamming shut on you. But like I said, all is not lost. There are still levers that you can pull. There are still years that you can use, and there are still ways to design a retirement that doesn't require you to shrink your life down to almost nothing. So let's talk about what's realistic and what is still possible. But before we do, I want to preface this by saying I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. This video is not about that. This is about putting together a strategy of levers you can pull and things you can control going forward. First things first, just take a breath, because you're not the only one in this position, not even close. Many people approach their late 50s with far less saved than expected. Life happens. Kids, job changes, health issues, business setbacks, divorce, economic downturns. None of that is going to show up in highlight reels. And the perfect retirement number is often presented to us as like some sort of universal rule, and it's not. Retirement success is not a single number, it's a structure. That structure includes your expenses, your income sources, whether you carry debt, how long you plan to work, your health, and how flexible you're willing to be. There are retirees out there with solid portfolios who barely touch their savings. And there are others who live primarily on Social Security and modest assets and do just fine. The difference usually isn't magic, it's structure. Now, let's be clear, money does matter, preparation does matter. This is not a fantasy pep talk. If you're behind, you do need to improve your position, but you still have leverage. So first, let's talk about the 4 levers that you can control in your 50s. The first one is time. Even just 5 more years of working can dramatically change the math. 5 more years of earning, 5 more years of contributions, 5 more years of compounded interest, 5 less years of drawing down in your savings. That alone can entirely shift the trajectory of retirement. So if you can work to 67 instead of 62 or 70 instead of 65, that's not a small difference. It compounds. So let's say you're 50 to 55 years old and you haven't saved a dime yet for retirement, but you're planning on working till you're 65 or maybe even 70 years old. That means you still have anywhere between 10 and 20 years to save. Now, that savings alone may or may not be enough, but there are still levers you can control. There are still other things you can do. The second lever that you have to pull is a Social Security strategy. Now, again, I want to preface this by saying I am not a financial advisor, and you should consult one when it comes to your Social Security strategy. But for many people, Social Security income is sort of the foundation of their retirement income. And delaying benefits does increase your monthly payout significantly. It's actually one of the few guaranteed increases that is still left in the financial world. Now, I'm not telling you what to do individually, but if you're healthy and you can keep earning, waiting can be one of the smartest moves you can make, because a higher guaranteed monthly income reduces pressure on everything else. The third lever, and I think one of the most important levers to pull, is debt elimination. Walking into retirement debt-free is incredibly powerful. A smaller nest egg with no payments often beats a larger account balance with ongoing obligations. If you're in your 50s, then focusing on eliminating high-interest debt is probably going to end up giving you more peace of mind in the long run than hitting some big round number in your investment accounts. Now, the fourth lever is expense awareness. And by this, I don't mean shrinking your life, but I do mean understanding your life. Now, this is one area that kind of catches a lot of people off guard in a good way. When you retire, some of your expenses just naturally tend to fall. Things like commuting costs disappear. I couldn't believe how much less I drove when I retired. Work clothes, if you have to buy them, daily lunches out. And for some people, some of their impulse spending tends to go away just because there's less stress. That doesn't mean that your healthcare costs won't rise. It might, and planning for that is responsible. But the idea that you're going to need to spend like you did in your peak earning years forever is often exaggerated. Many retirees find that their priorities totally shift in retirement and they start caring less about stuff and more about time. Before I move on to the big one, if this has helped you out any so far, please hit that like and subscribe button, hype the video, hit that notification bell, do all the things that make the video do what it do. Those really are the best ways you can help the channel, and I really appreciate it. Now, let's move on to the big one. Income doesn't have to stop just because your full-time job does. This is where I think the traditional retirement model that we've all been taught since we were children breaks down completely. The old model was pretty simple. Work hard, save the entire time you're working, stop working completely, live off of whatever you've saved, and hope it lasts until you die. That old model puts an enormous amount of pressure on your savings. One of the ideas that I'm trying to promote with this channel is that retirement does not have to be a hard stop. It's more of a transition. I think the new model is going to be more about freedom than it is anything else. So what if instead of going full throttle to zero, we went full time to flexible instead? Here's what I'm getting at. A modest supplemental income changes the math dramatically. Even just $1,000 to $2,000 a month can reduce the pressure on your savings a lot more than most people realize. Now, this could be part-time consulting in your former field. It could be teaching. It might be starting a small service business. It might be content creation like what I'm doing here. It might even be seasonal work doing something that you actually enjoy. The point is not to grind forever. The point is really just to stay engaged and generate enough supplemental income so that you don't have to downsize your life in your retirement. And here's something that's pretty important. If possible, building that income stream should really start before retirement, not after. In my opinion, your 50s shouldn't just be about catching up on savings. They should also be about expanding your earning capacity. You may not be able to change the last 25 years, but you can absolutely dominate the next 10 years. That might mean building skills that translate online. It might mean turning a hobby into something profitable. It might mean testing a small side hustle now while you still have your primary income to pay all your expenses. But this is where hope should become action. I didn't come on here today, though, to just give you a pep talk. I want to talk about something that may actually reduce a little anxiety for some of you who haven't saved a lot yet. The truth is that many retirees spend less aggressively in retirement than they once imagined that they would. A lot of people, when they're picturing retirement in their 30s and their 40s, they're picturing nonstop travel, constant upgrades, big spending. The reality is a lot simpler. People do slow down a little bit, especially with their spending. They often spend more time at home. They focus on family. They cook more than they used to. They pursue inexpensive hobbies. Their daily life just becomes less expensive than it was in their working years. That doesn't mean that everyone's comfortable. Some people struggle, and that's real. But the fear that retirement automatically means runaway spending and rapid depletion of your savings just doesn't match up with what a lot of people experience in their retirement. My point here is not to give anybody an excuse to underprepare. It's just kind of about perspective. For most people, retirement isn't about luxury. It's about sustaining and hopefully improving upon the lifestyle that you already had and dignity. So what does a realistic retirement look like if you're not already a multimillionaire? Realistically, it should look like modest but consistent savings. It may include delaying your Social Security benefits for a couple more years than you had originally anticipated. Hopefully, it includes little to no consumer debt, a manageable home situation, whatever that may be for you. Ideally, that's going to include at least a small supplemental income stream, but you'd be surprised. A lot of people are able to grow that side business into a salary that rivals what they had in their working years. And while we don't want to necessarily downsize our lifestyles, it does need to include reasonable and controlled expenses. Hopefully, good health habits, not only to increase longevity, but also to reduce preventable costs. And of course, mental engagement, and all those things put together are a really powerful combination, in my opinion, for a really fulfilling retirement. Now, if you notice what was missing, there was no yacht. There was no fantasy passive income number that's going to suddenly give you 10 to 15,000 more dollars a month that you haven't really earned. And there's no lottery ticket that's going to make this problem go away. There is structure, there is discipline, and there is agency. And that's the real message here. There is a path forward, and you still can have a meaningful retirement. If you're over 50 and behind, the worst thing you can do is panic and freeze. The best thing you can do is start pulling the levers that you still control. Increase your earnings if possible, reduce your high interest debt, delay benefits strategically, build a small business on the side, protect your health, and stay mentally sharp. Retirement doesn't mean having to shrink your identity, and it shouldn't mean having to reduce your lifestyle. To be refired is actually about refusing decline, and it's about redesigning this phase with intention. You don't need to be a multimillionaire to have a meaningful and stable retirement. You need a plan, you need discipline, you need to stay engaged, and you need to act now instead of assuming that it's too late. If you're in your 50s, you still have time, you still have earning power, you still have experience that a lot of younger people don't. That's not nothing, so all is not lost. But action is required, and if you take that action, the next decade can be far more powerful than you think. Hey, if this video helped you or gave you a different perspective about your retirement, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.